Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 5 of RISEUP, Voices from the Frontlines. And today I want to bring you a very special guest who is not only making a huge impact in the world, but also a very dear friend of mine. I want to bring Latasha Jimerson, author, teacher, coach, and motivational speaker, to the stage.
Hi, Krista. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate you.
Hello. I'm very excited about today because this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. And meeting you has showed me some really awesome ways that I can take some of the healing work that I do and move people forward to the next step and the amazing impact that will come from that. So I'm really excited about today's conversation. Let's begin at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about who was Latasha as a little girl.
That makes so much sense because that's exactly where it started. So I was in school early. My mom was like, "You're going to school early." She's like, "You're advanced. You can do a lot of things that most kids your age can't do." She literally put me in Head Start at 3. And so I was in Head Start, 3 years old. And I remember my favorite activity of the entire day was sitting crisscross applesauce on the carpet, listening to the teacher during story time, right? You remember that? Like you're just sitting there and you're waiting for the teacher to tell the story and they're holding up the book, showing all the pictures. That's my first memory of reading and storytelling and being engaged and being a part of the school. I always loved school. And so to be in school early, like that was a blessing to my life. And it's paid off huge. So I'm really glad that my mom was able to do that. And that program was available at that time. So yeah, the very beginning starts with me at 3 years old, being curious and excited and just ready. I always showed up ready to learn, regardless of what they were going to teach. I was always like, what are we learning? Like in my mind, like, what's going on? Yeah, that's the early me. That's the early Latasha at 3.
Oh my goodness. It's so different how people's memories of things because I've always been highly intellectual too, but when I was a child, it was discouraged. It was children are seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. Curiosity is annoying, and school was an escape for me. Same love for learning that was developed, but it came from a very different place.
Yeah.
And stories were an escape. Stories were like, oh, reality's ugly, but this world, I can get really interested in someone else's world and I can spend a lot of time in their world and then I can ignore mine.
That's true. And I was born into a family where my mom was 15 when she had me. So there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of arguments because her parents were frustrated because she popped up pregnant with me at 15, right? And she was excited. She was happy. She called me her sunshine and her teddy bear. But her parents and the other family members, the people in the community, were not proud of her having a baby at 15 years old. I came into the world with like all these mixed emotions, right? And all this turmoil and discussion around me as a person that just popped into the world. Yeah, school became an escape for me as well, because as the years went on, there was still frustrations, arguments. There's a period of my life where there was a lot of violence and a lot of abuse in the home. So I understand what you're saying about being able to escape, because that's what the library did for me. Like I was in the library all the time. Elementary, middle school, high school, even college. Like I was in there, like from the time it opened to the time it closed. And people would ask me, like, what do you do? What do you do in there? And I'm like, that's where the books are. I'm reading. I'm learning something different. And so it was also an escape for me. And it was also a safe place.
Right.
A fun place where I could go talk to people about their ideas, and we talk about my ideas. And at home, it was similar. It was, okay, you talk too much. Go over there, go have a seat, you know, or you need to mind your business, because I was always asking a lot of questions. And so I got that too. Children are to be seen and not heard. Go over there and sit down, be quiet, stay out of the way, and let the grown folks talk. Yeah. I get you. I got you.
Children of the 80s. Yep. Children of the 80s.
That was our life. That was it. And there was no cell phone. So we could just, we didn't have nobody to talk to. I would just go to my room and talk to my Barbie dolls, because I didn't have nobody else to talk to. So that was my life for a long time.
So what are your memories of the transition from reading to realizing that you had your own voice and starting to write?
Yeah. So I remember getting a diary at 12. So that was my 7th grade year, got my diary, and I would write in it to just express how I was feeling about what was going on in our house. It was a safe place, like a little secret place where I could write down what I actually thought about what was going on, and I could document what I was witnessing, because I witnessed a lot. My siblings were younger, so they were completely unaware of what was happening in the house. But I literally would write everything. And I don't know where I got this from, because nobody taught me to do this. But every day I would sit on my bed and I would write a journal entry into my diary. And then I would close it and lock it, because we had, remember those little key thingies? You could lock it. And I put it up in my closet way at the back. And I just, every day, that was my daily routine. Whatever I was going through, I would write it down, put it away. And I guess that was my way of like de-stressing and getting it out of my mind, because I remember having anxiety as a little kid. I remember like wetting the bed. I remember like sucking my thumb for a long time. I remember like pulling my hair out. And those were all things that shows a child having anxiety, being stressed out at a young age. That was me. That was my life. So I was like, I got to figure out a way to soothe myself, make myself feel comfortable. And that's what my diary did for me. I was able to put my thoughts in there and then be able to put on a smile and go to school the next day. I guess that's what was happening in my mind.
So you naturally came to the idea that you naturally came to the discovery of how important ritual is.
Yep.
And in that closing of the book and locking of the book, you put those emotions and those experiences away for the day so that you could actually function without, you put the baggage down for a while. And that's a huge accomplishment for a young person to naturally come to. People spend years in therapy learning to process their emotions and to regulate their nervous systems in those kinds of ways. But it's a beautiful ritual. And if people could grasp the magnitude of that significance of that closing the book and locking it and putting it away and then feeling like you could move on with your day, that's so tremendous. And now you're handing that off to other people. You're giving people that gift.
Yeah, thank you for putting it that way. I never thought of it that way, as locking it away, setting that aside for the moment, and then going back to it. I'm pretty sure one of my teachers had a diary or had a journal and showed us what it was, but I just created my own way to use it. I didn't know exactly how to use it, but I was just like, let me just do what I think I should do and what I feel like doing. And that was what I felt like doing after school every day.
We're very self-healing. If we listen to our intuition and we allow ourselves to do what our bodies need, what our minds need, we tend to already know a little bit. We might not know exactly how to do it, but we know we need to expel energy. We know we need to soothe ourselves or calm ourselves down. It's just a matter of getting the tools and resources to do that in an effective way. And writing is such a beautiful tool for people that have the capacity to do it. Let's talk a little bit about, as you're getting older and you're still madly in love, obviously, with reading. How many books do you have? Take a wild guess. How many books are in your personal library?
I don't even know anymore because I have so many ebooks and audiobooks now. I have no idea.
So you're into the hundreds, right?
Yes, for sure. For sure. And I think of it as like thousands and thousands of hours consuming information. That's how my mind thinks of it. Like hours a day, I would spend at least 8 hours a day reading some kind of material, like taking a deep dive into something. And it was a lot of history, a lot of things that happened in the past. I would go to whatever library I was at, especially in college. I would go to the basement of the library where they kept all the old musty books, and I would literally open them up. I would read encyclopedias. I would go through the dictionary and practice certain words. I would write down, copy certain sentences. Like I lived inside of the pages of books. Like I just got all in it. And my mom encouraged me. She would always say, "Girl, you better go put your nose in a book." And I literally did that. Literally, my nose was always in a book.
So the inevitable thing of all of this love for books and love for writing is it culminates in you being brave enough to tell your own personal story. So tell us a little bit about that process for you.
Oh, yeah. So the writing of my first book happened when I was already in my early 40s. Okay. And I was teaching full time. So I had a full schedule all day of teaching. At this time, it was social studies, middle school. And then I had 3 kids, one in elementary, one in middle school, one in high school. So that was busy, a whole busyness at home. And I would be up late at night because I couldn't sleep. Again, anxiety, these racing thoughts, all these things that had happened to me when I was young, they were all still circulating in my mind. And it was hard for me to slow down. Like you said, my nervous system, it was always on. So I started writing again as an adult, but then I wasn't consistent. And so I started having these really bad dreams. And that led me to go into therapy because I couldn't figure out why I was having these bad dreams. I couldn't figure out where these ideas were coming from. And so my therapist said, "Are you journaling?" And I was like, "What is that?" She was like, "Are you writing down the things that are in your mind or the triggers in your outer world that are bothering you?" And I was like, "Oh, I used to do that years ago." Somehow I didn't think it applied to me once I became a grown person. Like I was like, "Do I really need to do that?" And she's like, "Yeah, you need to get a journal and you need to start writing." And I was like, "What am I supposed to write?" And this is so funny because today my clients ask me the same thing and I have to take myself back to this moment and remember I was so overwhelmed with being a beginning teacher and being a mom, young kids, figuring out how to be married because we were just married, we bought a house. All of these things were like thrown together at once. And I did not know how to manage my life or my emotions. So I got this journal. I started writing everything down from the morning to the night, triggers, things that people said to me, places that I went. I just started writing down all the stuff. And I was like, whoa, there's a lot. I'm irritated all the time. I was like, wow, like I'm triggered by everything. I was like, what in the world? And I started talking to my therapist honestly. Because in the beginning, I didn't really want to be open and honest about what was going on in my head. But she just opened me up and she's like, look, if you can figure out what your triggers are and you can figure out how to avoid certain triggers and you can figure out how to manage your emotions, your whole life is going to be better. And I was like, really? I was like, am I going to be able to get rid of these nightmares? And she was like, I don't know about that, but I'm going to walk you through this process and we'll see what happens. And it was years. It wasn't just like a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 years. Like I would say that was probably like 2015, 2014, 2015. And then when I wrote my book, it was 2017. So that's about 3 years. And I was fighting with myself because I was praying and God was sharing with me in my spirit, okay, you are not healed, but you are healed enough. I heard this. You are healed enough to tell your story. And I was like, what? How do I do this, God? What am I supposed to do? Okay, you need to write the book first. So, of course, instead of just being obedient, I avoided that.
It's a scary moment.
Yes,
It's a scary
yes.
moment to go, okay, first, why is my story worthy of being told? Why is it important? Why does it matter? And then, how do I do this?
Yeah. Yeah, it was frightening and liberating at the same time because I had a feeling that once I let these things go, I had a feeling that I was going to feel better. I intuitively knew that my therapist was right. I didn't want to listen, but I knew that she was right. And I knew that if I wrote it down and I put it somewhere, because I wasn't completely sold on writing a book, but I knew that if I put it somewhere, like I used to do with the diary, that I was going to feel a lot better. So I went ahead and wrote. And then, of course, I was disobedient and I didn't publish. And then I ended up getting sick. Because this is what happens when you have a calling, you have a purpose, and then you run the opposite direction, right? Like in the Bible, Jonah is running from his calling. He ends up in the belly of the whale. That was me. Like I ended up getting sick. I ended up having to get 2 separate surgeries. I had a tumor. The tumor ended up having cancer in it. And so I was like, what in the world? And I ended up not being able to do anything other than recover from 2 surgeries in 1 year. And so I'm lying in my bed at home and I'm just thinking to myself, what else can I do right now? I can't go out. I can't go to work. I can't even take care of my kids. I have to get people to help me. What am I supposed to be doing right now? And once again, I'm praying and God is like, you need to be writing your book. There's nothing else you can do right now. And so I was like, I'm thinking, is there anything else? Anything else? No.
So you got let me take all of your excuses away. And now you have no choice.
Yes.
Now you're going to listen.
Yes. Yes. Because I was that disobedient person. Mm-hmm.
So when you finally put it out there, how was that experience for you?
Okay, so I wrote it. I had a friend edit it for me. She'd already published, so she's, I know this. Like, I can help you. Don't worry about it. So we got it up on Amazon. I left it there for, a couple weeks. And I was like this. Like, is anybody buying it? And then I got this idea to open a Facebook because 2017, I didn't have a Facebook. I was like, I call myself a little turtle. I was in a turtle shell in my classroom, teaching every day, getting my kids, doing the dinner thing, the homework, and packing the lunches and all that stuff. So I was like, I don't need a Facebook. I'm already busy enough. I don't know why people are on Facebook. Like I had all these ideas about Facebook, right? And then I went on there, opened up an account, and I was like, you know what? I need people to see my book because I don't know how they're going to find it. So posted an image of my book and I said, all right, I wrote this book and it's about my life. And if you want to buy it, it's on Amazon. And people started sending me messages in the DM. They were like, you wrote a book? And I was like, bless you. I was like, yes, I wrote a book. This summer, I wrote a book. And it was teachers. It was teachers that worked at my same school site. So I was like, no, I don't want them to read this book. I was like, it's too personal. So it was out there. I wanted it out there, but I was trying to control like who would get it. I didn't want people in my immediate like neighborhood to get it because I didn't want them to know what was going on with me on the inside. I just wanted them to see my smile and think everything was okay. And then my neighbors started getting it. Like, oh, you wrote a book? Then my classmates from high school, from college, and they were like, by the way, we've been on Facebook forever. Where the hell have you been? And I was like, I was scared that somebody was going to stalk me or steal my identity, which ended up happening throughout the years, but I didn't die, right? Like it wasn't horrible. I got over that experience. But that was the reason why I was afraid of social media because I was just like, in a little bubble. But when the book came out, I realized, okay, this is a story that people need to know. And I need to put this out so that people can learn from my life. And I quickly started to realize when I got feedback from people, I started to realize that number one, I'm not alone. And number two, it's not that big of a deal. Okay. Because I talked about being depressed. I talked about being diagnosed with bipolar, which I was so ashamed of. I was so embarrassed about. And then I started researching, finding out, oh, hey, I'm not. There's millions of people that have been diagnosed with bipolar. Oh, okay. So it's not that big of a deal. And then I talked about growing up in a house full of violence. My mom would get beat all the time. And I would be shaking because I could hear what was happening in the next room. And I would be like not able to go to sleep at night. So I wrote about that. And then I wrote about being molested by family members and being ashamed of my body and being ashamed of my own sexuality because I went through periods of being very promiscuous and sexually curious. And so I was ashamed of that. And even in my marriage, I had major issues with being comfortable and sexual in my own skin. So I wrote about these things. And I started to realize once people gave me their feedback and told me how they felt, I was like, damn, I'm not alone. And guess what? It's not that big of a freaking deal. So that writing my own personal story liberated me. It gave me the freedom to be like, you know what? All that stuff that happened, that's not me. That's what happened. That's over there.
Right.
So when that book came out, it was like, I felt like a whole new person who was not attached to all of that negativity. Like I felt like the true me that was really on the inside that God made, that person got a chance to live without all that fear and anxiety. So it was a painful process, but it was something that needed to happen to get me through to be able to teach the way that I teach now with really authentic life experiences, authentic stories. I'm able to pour into other people because of that process that I went through that was excruciating for me. I think that was a very long-winded answer. And I don't even remember the question, but I hope I answered it.
No, that was a perfect answer. And that is the process that I love having other people articulate it, because that was my experience too, was that I could talk till I was blue in the face to people, but the whole story is never there. There's just bits and pieces. And we reflect with a therapist about an experience, and we're supposed to heal from that experience. But something about that was not enough for me. Something about putting it down on paper and opening the wound and allowing other people to view it, maybe even from a distance. I don't know the nuances of this need, but I had to let other people see it in their own terms, in their own time. And I just had to put it out there and let them do what they wanted to with it. And that was when I could release it, when I no longer had to constantly help you understand. It wasn't my job to help you see the picture of what I was experiencing so you could fix it. Yeah. I just gave it to you so you could do with it whatever you wanted to. And that was the difference between talk therapy and putting it into writing for me, was I could give it to you and let you do it, and I no longer had to be burdened by it. Where somehow with my therapist, I was literally holding space for her to understand me. I was trying to create a picture for her. And when I didn't feel like she was getting that picture, I felt burdened. So there was something different about the process that allowed a letting go. And that letting go is so important in healing. And of course, some people are visual and some people are very focused on writing, and writing works for them, and other people it doesn't work for. But if writing is your thing, it's a very necessary thing, and it works differently than speaking your story. So what are you doing now? Because I know this is probably one of the most important pieces, is you didn't just tell your story and do the healing work for yourself. Now you help other people do the same thing. So what does that look like for you, this new process of helping other people?
Yeah, so this is a whole new chapter of my life, because I'm literally, and this is what I do full time. I'm no longer in the classroom teaching, which is such a relief for me, because that career, it was a 20-year long career, and it came to an end because there was just nothing else for me to do in that space. So I'm very grateful for what I do now, because now I walk with other women through that process, that painful process that was excruciating for me to put my ideas down, look at the mess, and like they say, figure out the message from the mess. That's what I walk people through now is, okay, this is what happened. This is what it was. What part of this is going to go in the book? What part of this just needs to stay in your journal? Some of it won't be told, and that's okay. But I help them get it out of their mind, soul, right? And put it on paper, get it out there. If they want to put it together in the form of a book, that's what we do. If they want to get on stage and talk about it, then I make sure that they have something quality to talk about. And it's a beautiful thing, because it's not something that I planned. I didn't wake up and say, I'm going to be a publishing coach. I'm going to teach women how to tell their story. I'm going to help them put it into a book. It's not something that I created at all. It evolved literally from me giving birth to my book. It gave people permission to say, oh, shoot, it's time for me. I have to tell my story. Can you help me? That's how I got my first couple of clients. People just coming to me. Hey, I have a story. Can you help me publish my book? I saw what you did for yourself. I want to do it. And so now I get to do this all day. It's
Look how joyful
awesome.
you are about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's awesome because I see women, they come and they're in so much pain and
Right.
confidence, shoulders are down, confidence is low. And then when we're done with the process, they're like relieved. Like you said, the burden, like all that heaviness that was trapped inside of all those emotions, when that stuff is out on paper, you can just fly. And I get to see these women just open up and become a different creature, like a whole renewed creature. But the creature that was always there, that God created, the beautiful person, but not heavy with all of the negativity, all of the trauma, the pain, all that stuff. They're like their real self. I get to see their real self.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of the process, because they come in and they look one way and they're feeling a certain way, and then not even through the whole process. This is only like after a couple weeks, I can tell the conversation is different and the way they look at themselves is different, and then the way their family members look at them is different. So I get to watch all that.
For those out there who don't know you yet, what is the name of your memoir? What is the name of your book, and where can they get it?
Absolutely. Literally, it's called Secrets. They can get it on Amazon and they can just type in Latasha Jimerson Secrets. The title is super long. So let me give you the whole thing. And this didn't come from me. This was something that I dreamed about, and I woke up and I was like, that's it. That's the title. So if they put in Secrets from My Closet, Unveiling the Past in Order to Heal in the Future. That's the whole title.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they can get it
And
on Amazon.
exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly. Because I literally was writing it and I was in my closet writing the book. And my kids were like, "Are you okay in there, Mom?" I was like, "Yep, I'm working."
Like, it's my private, quiet space.
Yes, exactly. It was my own little bubble.
For all of you guys out listening that already know about the Right to Heal program that we have at Battle to Be, you can expect in the near future, we're not quite sure what it's going to look like yet or how we're going to put this together, but you can expect in the near future that there will be a companion offering that is going to take you through the nervous system regulation, the timeline development, the process of getting to your emotional stability so that you can access that story in a safe way, and then going through the process of getting that story down and getting that story out if that's what you desire to do. So Latasha and I are playing with how can we best create this offering for you, but there will be something amazing in the near future for you. So if you are already at that place where you feel ready to tell your story, get with Latasha right now, right away. And if you feel like you're not ready to tell your story yet and you feel like that's something that you could never do, connect with me and we'll get you started and get you to the place where you are ready. And in the near future, watch for something really cool coming up for you guys. What do you do privately? Like, you've talked about the process and what you do for people. Do you do that as a group coaching kind of situation? Do you do that one-on-one? What does your process look like?
I love that question. So honestly, this is a great question because I'm making a pivot in my business. I've been working with one-on-one clients for 6 years. And I'm at the point now where I am only going to be offering group programs for two reasons. Number one, because it's more efficient for me in terms of how I can serve people, right? Then the other reason is because something happens in a group when you have other people that are like-minded and they're going through the similar journey and they're having struggles with the writing and all that, all the stuff that goes into the writing, that's the emotional piece. The support group is awesome. And so this fall, I am only enrolling clients into my group program. My private clients, I'm booked for the rest of the year with private clients. Anyone who's interested in being in a small group, and I group 4 to 5 people. It's not a huge group of people, but I only work with women. It's women over 40. And these are women who have a story, but they've been just struggling to get it out. Like it's just been in there. The story's been in there for decades, and they need someone to help them pull it out. And they don't mind being in a small group with other women that have similar stories. And yeah, my group program is opening up at the end of October, and I will be enrolling 5 ladies. And I can't wait to see what you and I create together, because you literally do this something very similar. Even the name of your program is a phrase that one of my clients used. And I met her on Clubhouse, the audio app, during the shutdown. And she's another teacher. And she told me, I was like, I didn't even realize this, but she was like, the process that you took us through, she's like, that's a right to heal process. And I was like, really? What is that? She's like, no, like writing. She's like, that whole process was healing. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know I did that for other people. Like for me, I was just excited to have a tangible book product. But she was like, this whole process was healing. She's like, you need to call it that. And I was like, okay. So I went on Clubhouse and I opened up a little house and a little club or whatever it was at that time. And I put Right to Heal Club, and I picked a day and I picked a time, and I opened up a room like every Thursday at 2 or whatever it was. And people showed up and they were like, what is this? And I had my clients in there and I was like, you tell them what this is. Because I'm still not really clear about what this is. So my clients they would share, welcome to the Right to Heal Club. This is what we do here. And I was just like, wow, this is cool. Yeah. So when you said that, I was like, okay, Krista and I are going to create something together, because that's not a coincidence that we're using the same language to describe the same process.
And there's no other language. It's the natural language that just evolves because that's the process, right? Yeah. And when you understand the process and you realize that it is so much more than writing a book. Yeah. It's so much deeper than writing a book. And it's so much bigger than getting it out of ourselves, because once it gets into the hands of others, it's creating that ripple effect. It's creating that compounding change. Sometimes reading someone's story and realizing that you're not alone is what it's going to take for someone to heal. Maybe they're not a writer. Maybe they don't really want to tell their story, or they're never going to be able to have the capacity to do that. But hearing your story touches them in a way that they go, I'm not alone. And just not being alone is enough to keep them here. Yes. It's enough for another day. It's enough for that survival moment, or it's enough for them to help someone else by passing it on and saying, look, this story was amazing. It impacted my life. Maybe it can impact yours too. So it grows so much outside of just writing a book. Yeah. And I definitely don't say just writing a book as in just writing a book, because if you've ever written a book, it's a lot. It's a lot of a process, and it's a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of investment, but it's even bigger than that.
It's way bigger, way bigger than you or me or the book.
Yes. Yeah. It's a soul journey, and you are my soul sister. And I am so happy to have connected with you. And Latasha is actually sponsoring our podcast as well. So you're going to see her amazing reels on a few of our episodes moving forward. So if you forget her name, you will see her again. I promise. And when I post this episode, we're also going to attach all of her social media links so that you can get a hold of her and get registered for that course that's coming up, if that is something that you're interested in. And again, even if you lose all of this information and you message me and say, who was that who was that publisher lady, or who was that lady that you had on? I will connect you to her. So even if you lose everything, just message me. I'm easy to get a hold of. We'll get you to Latasha. What would you like to leave as closing words for our audience?
I was pregnant for 12 years with my book. Literally pregnant. It was uncomfortable. It was excruciating. It was annoying. I was disobedient. Do not continue to be pregnant with your book. There's so much support now. Do not continue to be pregnant with your story. Even if you're not going to put it into a book, you still have to write it. You still have to write to heal. You still have to write it because it needs to be, your story needs to be separate from you. Because it's not who you are. It's just what you've been through. And somebody else needs to learn from that. And you need to move on. That's it.
I love your tone as you say that. And you need
to move on. That's the bottom line. You need to move on because you have bigger and better things to do in this life. And it's time right now.
No better time than now. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, so much for being with us today for this episode of Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines. And don't forget to hit those links and check out Latasha Jimerson and follow her on her social media, and then sign up for that course that is coming up, that group that's coming up this fall. And also, if you want to be a sponsor of our podcast, you can just message me or email us at battle2be, BATLE2BE @yahoo.com. Also, again, of course, and share and follow this podcast. This podcast actually supports a 501c3 nonprofit that serves those who serve country and community and works in crisis response for our local community. So every single dollar counts and makes a difference in the lives of those who are out there serving their country and community. So thank you so much for watching this episode, and we will see you again next week.